Alright folks, welcome back to another video. This will be episode 2 of Smith & Wesson Showcase. Today we've got the Model 29 out today. We're going to be taking a look at it. We've got an original holster that was bought with the gun in 1980. We've got the blue box. We've got some papers and some tools we're going to be looking at. And of course some good shooting. We'll talk about the history of the 44 Magnum cartridge a little bit, some of the in-frame lineage history from the early 1900s up until the 50s when the cartridge was developed, and then on up through the 80s when this gun was produced. So this is a 1980 Smith & Wesson 29-2 bright nickel finish, target hammer, target trigger, adjustable rear sights, target stocks with that cutout right there, checkered, sharp checkered right there. This is a pinned and recessed Magnum gun. If you know the Smith & Wessons, you probably know what that means. But this is pre-1982. They still had the recessed cylinders there, and we might put some snap caps in to look at how those hold the rim of the cartridge. So basic introduction for the 29. We'll keep this pretty brief. There's several things and about 50 years of history that you could talk about, but we'll keep it pretty brief. It traces its lineage line through the in-frame back to the triple lock. It was the first model on the in-frame that Smith & Wesson produced. They had the 44 special cartridge. They developed the triple lock to shoot it out of, and it was the very first attempt at an in-frame or a large frame revolver. You had about 4 models in between, all the way through the 20s, 30s, 40s, up to the 50s. That 4th model, swing out 44 hand ejector, was a little different, where inside that one model you did have a dedicated gun that had fixed sights and target sights. Up until that point, target sights were special order only. You could send a order into Smith & Wesson. You could order the target sights if you wanted a longer barrel, different features, different grips probably on the gun. You could special order it, kind of similar to a custom shop deal today, I guess. And that's why those older 44s with adjustable sights or different stocks, they're very hard to come by and very expensive if you find those. I think a triple lock in very nice condition, not even with the box, can run you several $1,000s now. But if it's a complete package, especially some of those premium features like a target sight or something like that, I mean, it could run, those are high level auction deals, $10,000 to $15,000 for those old guns now. Kind of a cult following for those, especially those triple locks. We've got a video on the triple lock we might link at the end of this one if you're interested in triple lock and seeing the 3rd lock on the gun. It was a pretty cool feature, and a lot of people still call those one of the very best revolvers ever produced. Those were 1907 to around 1915 production. So in 1954, something happens. Elmer Keith, who was a competition shooter, target shooter, and reloader of ammunition, he had been working on a 44 special cartridge. You could kind of call it a 44 special plus P plus now. He had hand loaded it, worked with different bullet weights, powders, and he had produced this very powerful steel 44 special cartridge. He came to Smith & Wesson and said, "I've got this cartridge. I think it would be cool if it was a new caliber, something this powerful, but we need another gun to shoot it out of." So in 1954, Smith & Wesson strikes up a deal with Remington. They developed the 44 Magnum cartridge. This is what it looks like today. This is a 240 grain jacketed soft point bullet, and you notice there it still says 44 Rem Mag, and on the box it'll say 44 Remington Magnum or something along the lines. And that traces all the way back to the deal in the mid-50s between Smith & Wesson and Remington. So they have the cartridge. They developed the gun. Originally it was called the NT 430. N being the frame size of N, target T, and .430 for the bore size. They do a limited run, I think, of 5. Smith & Wesson sends at least 1 to an NRA representative. Elmer Keith gets a couple. Some of their contacts at Remington get a few models for their collection. They're probably in some museums now, which is pretty cool. I think Elmer Keith's, one of his personal 44s sold not too long ago. It might have been several years ago, but yeah, talk about a high dollar item there. One of his personal 29s. Pretty cool stuff. So fast forward a couple more years to early 1956 or maybe December 55. They've got the tooling and they want to start mass producing the 29 or their new in-frame 44 Magnum gun. And they do. It looked pretty similar to this gun here. It would have had 5 screws. Nickel was very scarce in the early days, especially on the pre-29s before 1957 and before on up through the 60s. So a nickel gun definitely brings a premium back then. It wasn't as common now. Also, these longer 8-inch barrels, 8 3/8, they were not common. I don't know if there was actually any produced or if anyone knows. There could be some out there that were shipped to a store, maybe 1 or 2 that are still tucked away somewhere. I don't know if they verified there was any long barreled 29s that were produced in that late 50s run. So engineering changes, you have the deletion of the 5th screw, then the 4th screw. That takes us up through the 60s. There wasn't a whole lot of changes there. You could special order them 5.5, 5-inch, 6, 6.5-inch, 8-inch barrels. They had some shorter guns, 4 inches. Pretty much anything you could dream up, you could order from Smith & Wesson on the end frame for the 44 Magnum. Here's a look at the original tools in this case. This one is a 1980 model. You've got the cleaning rod there. You've got the hard brush and the soft brush. Looks like they have not been used. But that's pretty cool. You may have saw some of the old presentation cases. They were black. And I think they had the Smith & Wesson logo engraved or printed on the top of the box somehow. They call these mahogany. I'm not really sure. They're pretty nice boxes, presentation boxes, jointed corners. These locks right here I think were made in New Jersey. So it's pretty cool, American made stuff. Brass plated steel. Had this foam insert in the top. Had, I don't know, that probably a factory marking of some kind. Got an ammunition booklet. Interesting thing is the 44 Magnum is not in this book. You had 38 Special, 357 Magnum, and 9mm, but this did come with the gun. And then you have the warranty centers. We saw that last week. Same paper that came with the Model 60. So this is the last variation of the presentation case. There were a few different models from the early 60s all the way to the 80s, with I think the very early 80s were the last that came with the presentation case. Maybe you could special order a case with them, but you did have the option to buy your 29 with a case. A few of them, I think they were felt, or I can't remember what Smith & Wesson called it, but on both sides they were like a felt material. The generation before this case, the gun would actually sit this way, and instead of a different compartment in the case for the cleaning kit, they had little elastic straps, bands here, and they sat in the case visible with the gun. So that's pretty cool. This is the last variation with this extra door here for the cleaning case, or for the cleaning kit. Pretty cool. We'll get some shots of the holster on the table, some good shots. This is a triple K from San Diego. Looks like model 1911 for an 8 3/8 inch gun. This is a breakaway. It's kind of like, it's got a clamping spring mechanism that holds it in this way. Works a little better when it's on your body with the gun in there, but it breaks away from the top pretty quick. Very cumbersome to wear. I mean, it's heavy. I'm sure you can imagine wearing this on your side, but it is pretty cool. These cost about $135 in 1956 when they were released as the NT430. You cannot pick these up for that much anymore. Put some snap caps in here. You can see that recessed cylinder holds the rim of that cartridge, so it sits flush with the cylinder face there. Very, very light. True target guns. And still today, you can buy the Model 29s. They do look a little different, of course. I think there's 3 different options you have from Smith & Wesson right now. You've got a 4-inch, a 6-inch, and I believe the other is a 4-inch, but it's fully engraved on the barrel, the frame, and the grips. It's engraved, and it comes with its own presentation case. You may be able to order the cases with the other models too. I'm not sure. But with the new release of the no-lock series, the 29 does fall in the classic series with Smith & Wesson today. So who knows, we may be getting a 29 with no lock at some point, and they do look really good. So I would be interested in buying a 29, because really it's kind of hard to find an older 29 for less than you can buy a new one from Smith & Wesson. So if you wanted one to keep, one of them to shoot, you know, to put up, whatever, that would be a pretty cool option. I know a lot of people are interested in the new no lock line from Smith & Wesson in that classic series. So the 29 was officially discontinued in 1999. It was brought back through the mid-2000s. There were special productions, anniversary editions, stuff you could special order, things that came with really nice cases. And then they brought that back with the classic series now, so you can still get the 29s. Of course, in 1971, you had the release of Dirty Harry. He was using a Smith & Wesson 29, a 6-inch, blued. So that only made the gun more popular. So it's got its own following for those reasons now. So that's some of the history. That's kind of where the 44 Magnum comes from. And that's where the 29 gets its lineage from, all the way back to the early 1900s with that triple lock. We appreciate you watching this segment. Stay tuned. We're going to do some more shooting today. We're going to get the 29 out on the range and shoot some more steel. We might print it on some paper targets from 15-20 yards, see how it does. I'm sure it will do a lot better than I can shoot it, but that's what they were made for, is more target shooting. So we'll see how it does. Should be good. We'll get the shoulder holster out, might demonstrate how it works, but it should be good. So appreciate you watching. Stay tuned. We're going to shoot this next. All right, we're out here on the range now. I've got the Model 29 in the holster. That's the Triple K breakaway. So it's pretty simple. It's got the leather part that goes around your shoulder here. It's got some elastic that goes around your back through the other shoulder. It's got another leather strap that hooks on your belt down here. And it breaks away just kind of like that. It's supposed to keep the gun tucked up in the side, so if you put an overshirt on or a jacket on, it would, you know, I guess kind of conceal it. It's pretty large. It's fairly uncomfortable to wear, but I'm not sure if I took off full speed if it would stay put or not. But that was the original idea, and it's pretty cool just to have the original holster that was bought in 1980 with the gun. So yeah, comes out, breaks away like that. Shoot your rounds, whatever. Open up the spring, stick it back in, and even a gun of this size, it, you know, keeps it clamped in pretty good. So that's pretty neat, pretty cool holster. We're gonna take some shots. We got some steel set up. We're gonna shoot some 44 mag out of this guy, see if it can ring it. It shoots pretty good, much better than I can shoot it. I adjusted the sights a little bit. It's been a while since I've shot 44 Magnum. I forgot how powerful it feels in your hand. So I'm gonna have to put it on the paper sometime soon and see exactly where it's hitting. But appreciate you watching the 29 video. Did some history, got to learn about the end frame and the development of the 44 Magnum. Got to see some pretty good shooting. Rung some steel with her. So tune in next week. We'll have another Smith & Wesson out of the safe to look at. As always, we appreciate you watching. Thank you.